We'll get started here. Welcome. Thank you for everyone for joining today. We're going to talk here about innovation for the way forward in text analytics, which is part of our people analytics approach. Today I'm Matt Morehouse. I'm a senior product manager and data scientist here at Perceptyx, working on people analytics tools, comments, data science as well. I'll be presenting the session today, and our facilitator will have Ellen Lovell here today helping answer your questions. And then today's an interactive session, so please use the Q&A feature throughout the session for any questions you have, and also please provide any feedback throughout the Zoom chat as well. We want to hear everyone's feedback for everything. And so here our facilitators today are here to help guide the session and help answer any questions as well. So please feel free throughout the session to provide any questions. So where are we going today? Today we want to go over kind of an overview of text analytics here at Perceptyx. Want to discuss kind of the stages of text analytics, what it means to be crawling, walking, and running in text analysis. And we also want to provide a demonstration of the kind of features that are available to people working in text analytics with particular interests in tools for sentiment analysis, detection of themes or topics in people's comment data, as well as tools that help users see a more complete story in their data, help make sense out of something that's been completely unstructured, providing structure and order to help systematically look at the data. And we also want to take a look at kind of future developments in text analytics, and also get what you all are thinking, like what kind of needs do you have or interests do you have? What kind of use cases do you have for text analytics that are problems you're trying to solve? So text analytics at Perceptyx. Our goal with text analytics is to provide users with insights direct to them, direct insights, actionable items, and personalized recommendations. Because, when you get text data and everything comes out as the free form comment response data, and we attempt to provide tools that help bring order to that and help bring it systematically. So providing structure to that, taking the comments, providing any needed translations, detecting sentiments in that, and providing with those as well topics that have been modeled as well, so that you have direct data that's available to you. And you want to make sense of that, because you don't want to give someone just a download of just only the comments. And to make sense of that, you want to help someone have assistance and a guide to help make sense out of comment data. So taking order from unstructured data, providing analytics tools that help them see where variations and changes are in, as well as helping provide actually actionable recommendations for users. Because you don't want to give someone, just as much as you don't want to give someone just a set of comments only and then have them try to make sense out of maybe like 30,000 comments, you don't want to just leave them with tools only to try to make sense out of the data themselves. You want to provide them with tools to help understand where are issues occurring. So perhaps in some area, like in Seattle, people are very happy with their managers and benefits, but maybe in New York, people are happy with their managers, but not their benefits, and helping understand those patterns, but not limiting it there. You also want to provide actually actionable items for what people can do with thought leadership and actions that make sense as personalized recommendations. You don't want to give a shift manager, somebody who's a supervisor on an overnight shift with 5 direct reports, hey, your employees were upset about compensation, that's your action item. You never want to do something like that. You want to provide actionable insights and thought leadership to help meet people where they're at and make recommendations for where they are at. And I think I see that there's a question item.
I'm not seeing one, Matt. If you see one, though, feel free to read it out loud.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was the welcome. Oh, saw that. It was my bad. I didn't notice it there. I thought it was. Oops. Oh, well. But we also want to move on from crawl to run with text analytics. And what do we mean by kind of like crawl to run with text analytics? Traditionally, the way folks have traditionally done text analytics is just having kind of like raw comments and then people trying to make sense out of these raw verbatim comments. Or at most, maybe having something like a word cloud or some overall thing that gives them a quick understanding of the overall results, but nothing very detailed. So it's either been a large data dump or something just like a very high level. But that's the old way of the industry. Where you want to get it is with walking and running. And with walking, of course, having tools to help answer unique business questions. They're baked into the system. So somebody doesn't have to try to take the raw data and make sense out of themselves. You have tools that are automatically provided to make sense of the data. So you don't have to have a background in natural language processing or anything, or stats or anything to do that. You can do it through the tool. And those are ways that you can see, going beyond that to see, oh, there's patterns of variations of responses, that we see these kinds of differences in this region versus this other. And we're trying to make sense of, like what's the potential cause of these variations, so we can help understand how to make decisions. And moving into the run stage, we have new tools. So instead of just focusing solely on your data that's already in text format, leverage your other sources of data through like making use of voice data. Lots of people have recordings of communications or voicemails or conversations potentially with everyone. So why not make use of new sources of data, your voice data, your crowdsource data that you could get from info. So make sense of that, as well as new tools to help guide actions, nudges that are recommended to help spur people on to take action, as well as new tools to help gain insights for not just, oh, here's an issue figured out, but where do we actually go from here and what should we actually do? So it becomes not just descriptive or predictive, but proscriptive of what actions you should actually take. And kind of wanted to go over where that, oh, I see we do have a question. I know.
Yes, they're asking for an example of crowdsourced data.
Oh, with crowdsourced data, example of crowdsourced data could be with like a jam session type tool, analytics tool, or an internal company intranet forum and others, where you can posit questions and have people discuss for brainstorming, and could also be used as a tool for having people vote on metrics. So kind of like jam session type tools, company communities and intranets, things like that. Does that help clarify?
Yes, she said thanks.
Good, cool. Glad to help. And so moving on to the tool, I want to demonstrate kind of like how someone would, in this whole kind of walk and running stage, go through analyzing text. So here I'm in a comments report, and I want to discuss kind of like how you would go through about it, where, again, traditionally, in kind of the crawl stage tools, folks would just have raw comments, or maybe at most like a word cloud or some type of brief overview. But again, that causes users to have to dive immediately into the most detailed kind of portion and try to make sense out of the data, or have such a high level view, where do you go next? So I want to discuss kind of in this stage, like how you walk and run with it, and how you go from the overall approach down into the details to figure out where you should proceed next and what kind of details should be gathered next. And as part of this, I want to first kind of show an example of a word cloud tool where you can see 1, 2, and 3 word comments, as well as themes. So in this case, we have a word cloud showing the themes that come up in the survey. We can see kind of based on relative size, how often themes are coming up. We can see shading here based upon how positive and negative and neutrally they're discussed. But it gives you kind of a quick high-level overview. So you can see, okay, management, continuous learning, benefits, those things are coming up a lot. So the next stage would be where you really want to dig in more, and that's with a thematic analysis. In a thematic analysis tool, We can see a list of pre-built themes covering standard, industry standard topics that you cover employee engagement, like benefits, bureaucracy, career opportunities, and so forth. And this gives a quick overview of like what topics, what are people talking about in our comments? And also how are they talking about them? There's also the opportunity for digging even further. You can create custom themes, create themes you name yourself, and that you can add keywords and phrases for detection of themes. You can even, in this case, just as a quick note as well, you can also control your own keywords and phrases you want to use for detecting themes. But if I was going to go through this, I would first start out, kind of a quick overview of the word cloud to see, what's coming up the most, and then really dive into the thematic analysis, where I would first explore what themes are coming up the most. In this case, we see, management, continuous improvement, benefits, and compensation are themes that a lot of employees are talking about, having well more than 5% of them talking about it, good chunk for pretty large in size of a survey of about 32,000 records. So we can see here how often they're coming up. We can also see based upon sentiment as well, but let's go explore this benefits. We see benefits, a couple thousand comments, good chunk of respondents are mentioning that in their comments. And we see 59% of people seem to be happy with it, while only 32% of people seem to have negative views and 9% a little more neutral. But that doesn't give us the whole picture. It seems that folks are happy about it, but we see there's a significant chunk of folks who aren't. So we want to explore this further. And so I would say a next step would be to conduct a crosstab analysis. Where in a crosstab analysis, we're going to start seeing patterns of divergence and differences across these. So moving into a crosstab analysis, we can see different themes that have come up. So we see an overview of the themes, we see a breakout, and we can do this by multiple different demographics, but we see here an analysis of theme occurrence. So how often is a given theme being mentioned? And in this case,
we have a question in the chat about create theme. Is that a function we need to request to be turned on?
Oh, yeah, that's available. It can be turned on, and it'll be set as you can control its usability by user status. So it can be as restricted or as open as you want it. So if you want to restrict it to admin users, you can do that. If you want to open up to any user status, you can do that. But it's one that's controlled access by user status. Does that help answer?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. All right. So we can see here a breakout. So we can see here that for at least for the benefits theme, relatively similar levels of mentions across the 4 regional breakouts, North America, Latin America, and everything, kind of similar breakouts for region for how often they're mentioning it. But that doesn't give us the full picture. We want to know, okay, folks are kind of mentioning it in a similar proportion, but how do they feel about it? And that's how you can see through the crosstab, you can see how people feel about it. So here we're evaluating by % positive. And we can see there's quite a bit of a variation across regions. So we can see that 73.5% of the comments in Latin America mentioning benefits positive. A little bit lower in North America. We can see the EMEA region has the lowest with 16.7% of comments are the only 16.7% comments are positive. So we can see there's a definite variation across regions. So, okay, we got some regional differences here. Can we explore this any further? But before that, I also want to mention you can also explore by comment question, and you can also subset it by theme. So you can cut the question by a specific theme. But if I go back to here, I can add in a secondary cut. And so let's see, are there variations in how the countries are viewing things within the region? And so in this case, we can cut by up to 2 demographics, and we can see that benefits, we see some further variation. We even dig down into country differences. So we can see that, you US has a bit lower than Canada, consistently a little bit more positive in Latin America. EMEA region, we can see some differences, as well as Asia Pacific. We can see we go all the way from 57.1% positive in Singapore to a low of 6.9% of comments being positive in Thailand regarding benefits. And as a note, for like the star cases are those that there aren't enough responses for a given threshold cut to report data as part of our minimum end protections for data privacy. So as a whole, we took first from thematic analysis, what are the general trends? Then let's explore this further to see where are there any cases potentially of divergence. And we saw that benefits are being mentioned at a relatively similar rate across the regions and everything, but we see a bit of a divergence going by region and even country mentions this, which helps identify where things seem to be going well, so we can see what is going well or what's being done well in these areas that's making people happy, and what are the pain points in these other areas, so we can know where we can target remedial action to help things. And with this, where will we go next? Well, we see here how folks are feeling about sentiment, positivity, but we also want to know, well, what about how folks are feeling more neutral or negative? What's kind of the distribution of that? And so that's where I would take it into a hotspot analysis. Where you can see here, theme prevalence is just how often a given theme is being mentioned. And we can see from here, again, kind of the same thing, relatively similar levels of mentions, as no surprise. But how does it look if we go by positive? And we can see, again, breakouts by here. We can see in North America, it's kind of an even split here for, not even split, but kind of a split where, most people are positive, otherwise negative, kind of a smaller amount of neutral. Asia Pacific, we can see it's just a little bit under shy half negative, but a pretty good amount of kind of more neutral feelings and everything. So this can help us kind of identify cases where, we're not just where things are positive, but also, okay, it seems to be people are either split. People either in North America and Latin America and the EMEA region, employees are either happy or unhappy with their benefits. Well, there's kind of a more of a balance where we have kind of a distribution of, about half are unhappy, but we also have folks that are kind of neutral. And that can help kind of target both what do we need to find out from folks that are more neutral on it, what are the issues for them? And those might be different from the folks that are viewing things more negatively. Again, it could be the same issues, but it can help further investigation. And where I would go from this is exactly to that. Okay, we know where some pain points and differences are. Let's see what people are actually talking about when it comes to benefits. And so instead of starting right at the most detailed level, the comments, and trying to make sense of it, let's kind of continue to drill down from thematic analysis to get specifics and crosstabs to hotspots. Now let's see what people are talking about. And so I'm going to filter here on the demographic. We're going to filter by region. Okay, we're going to see Asia Pacific. I'm going to submit the filter. And then what we're going to do here then is we're going to start looking at what individuals are talking about in their comments. What kind of issues and concerns do people have? And so we filtered to Asia Pacific region. And now we're going to continue to filter. So we're going to look at folks that talked about benefits. Although I want to note, you can filter it by question if desired, by particular sentiment outcomes, and by particular keyword searches. But let's just filter it for now just down to folks in the region who mentioned benefits. And what we can see is for people who, if we filter down to folks that mention benefits and the Asia Pacific region, Ellen, am I still audible? I think my internet just conked out.
Yes, we can still hear you.
Okay, I think I got my internet. Let me try to filter my internet. Sorry, I think my internet connection reset there. But if I were to do that, what I'd be seeing is what you'd be able to see is the comments by the particular theme. And by that particular theme, we'd be able to see all the verbatim comments that individuals wrote, along with the sentiment for their comments. And we could filter that down further by sentiment if we so desired, as well as we could also view it by the other themes that are correlated with it. And we could also have, there's the reviewed flag, which in the reviewed flag, we would be able to, if we were as a human going through and all this, a human would be able to go through and flag which comments they had marked as human reviewed versus not human reviewed. And that's kind of a use case for a team where if a client or a user wants to go through and have a human team review all comments, maybe for legal concerns and everything that, you know, that they can say that they've done their due diligence and have read all the comments, it can help a team track that as possible. And my apologies for my internet connection reset issue there that damaged my connection there. My apologies. That was on my internet's end. But taking from the tools, again, kind of a walkthrough of like, you want to go through like this thematic analysis to get the overview, and then moving further down through a crosstab analysis to see where patterns of divergence are based upon your outcome, be it how often they're talking about a theme or sentiment about a theme, and then explore further for the distribution of positive, negative, and neutral, and then moving on to verbatims to see examples of what people are talking about in there. As part of this too, since we've been talking about, I also wanted to make a note about sentiment analysis. And so sentiment analysis is basically one of the tools for trying to make sense of human provided data. So instead of trying to read all the comments, see them yourselves, have an AI or machine learning algorithm look through your comments and flag them as what the sentiment is, like be it positive, neutral, or negative. And then that can be as a fundamental base for systematically evaluating data using new tools for, you know, so like with Crosstab, conducting your own analyses. And so when we get to sentiment analysis and being an AI, just again, I know there's like sometimes concerns about what AI machine learning are, but again, at their fundamental basis, they are mathematical and statistics. So they're mathematically based. And there is a human element in making sure they're set up. So it's not necessarily the risk of a AI gone off on its own as a general intelligence, like it's C3PO. But again, it's humans developing those models and evaluating algorithms. So there is a human element. So it's not, I know sometimes the media, the concerns over AI or that's not really a concern here. And part of this also gets in what would you see as kind of good sentiment? And our models here are within the industry standard for generalizable sentiment approach of around 80 to 85%. We're currently, our newest model is 86% accurate, and we're in part of a continuous improvement process with that. And why you would see kind of like what's good accuracy or not with machine learning, this gets into kind of use cases where if you're doing image searches and image classification models, super highly accurate, well in the thousands percentage point, of 99% accurate, where, if you search for Google an image of an aircraft carrier, you're getting an image of an aircraft carrier, not a cat. Just because, it's a very explicit use case of what's a aircraft carrier versus a cat, But when it comes to language, it's a much more difficult space in machine learning because of, translations, how people use things, jargon, slang, just fundamental differences of how people write things. And so when you get into that, the question is, like we've all been in this. So You get an email from someone, and the question is, did they mean that to sound so negative, or did they mean that, they were just stating facts? You get a little bit unsure, did they mean to sound harsh or not? Same kind of thing if it's so for humans, so for machine learning. So within industry standard, it's about 80 to 85% accuracy. And that's because with research on human beings agree about sentiment about 80 to 85% of the time. So that's seen as an industry standard. But as I said, we're always in a continuous improvement. And as we currently have 86% accuracy, we're wanting to constantly build that up even higher. And as part of this, we have the ability for there to be human-made adjustments to the labels for sentiment, because we never want a user to be stuck with an incorrect sentiment in their tool. And so we're providing users with the ability to make corrections to the sentiment, where if someone comes in and they see a comment's positive, but they think it's a little more neutral, they can make that change. So they see the results corrected right there for them in the tool immediately. But also, as part of continuous improvement, to keep boosting it up, that becomes a new record to help retrain the model to increase its accuracy even more. Just the same way as, like, if you get a spam email and you flag it as spam and it goes away, to retrain a spam detector model, same idea, but applied to sentiments, that human corrections continuously improve the model. Even though already highly accurate within industry standards, you always want to continue to increase. And with theme detection, so theme detection, also some folks may have heard of it as topic modeling. And with topic modeling, we have a range of ways to do this. So at Perceptyx, we have a set of 43 themes that are on by default that cover the typical employee and company type experience, ranging from benefits, compensation manager, strategy, work-life balance, the whole standard, as you would see in the industry themes that you would want to look at, as well as themes to help try to detect employees' purpose and what they're trying to express in comments. So we also have new themes now for detecting and flagging cases where there might be anger or people are afraid, comments with praise, as well as flagging when people are trying to make recommendations and suggestions for improvement. Of course, that's not the full scope. You also want to have other themes. So we also have a diversity inclusion theme set that is under a continuous development program. So we have currently diversity inclusion themes available. It's something we're continuously expanding because we want to provide both general coverage of themes as well as developing the full scope of themes to cover, make sure we're covering in a global context all types of racial, ethnic groups, religious groups, sexual orientation, even political views as well, to provide a holistic whole as we evaluate diversity inclusion. As well as addressing comments can also be quickly developed to provide themes for developing issues. Like with COVID-19, we have a COVID-19 series to cover issues with sanitation, workplace safety, employee health, and well-being. Return to work concerns about what if people have been gone, what are the new issues they're coming into. And then finally, as well, wanting to cover issues related to particular career levels and industries. So providing themes to detect middle manager concerns and particularly how they're trying to work in this new environment with COVID, as well as themes for retail and healthcare and manufacturing, as well as currently under development, a patient safety theme set, so that you can detect new things. So instead of not just themes, but you can also see where things are coming up. So like if you're looking at the nursing department and you might see, if you're a hospital, you might see that, oh, we see that nursing is off and this unit is in ICU is mentioning EVS highly negatively, but we have a lot of positive comments related to EVS in other areas of the hospital. That's an area to investigate. Or if you're working in a retail environment and you want to detect issues related to perhaps supply or issues related to, sorry, cough there, issues related to maintenance. as well. But again, those are really great and good things you automatically look for. But you also want to have even greater opportunity of finding completely new things, new things. And so what you can do with machine learning, an approach that's called unsupervised learning, which is really just basically a fancy way to say that you're detecting patterns in the data and providing new results to people that they hadn't seen before. This is a fancy term for that. Machine learning can provide this opportunity to detect new themes that are unique to your own survey. So like if you have a program for Employee Wellness 2020 as a program. Now, again, it's not going to be part of a default theme set because it's highly specific. And while someone can create custom themes, if that wasn't created as a theme, it wouldn't be detected through a normal process. But a machine learning approach with unsupervised learning can detect that because it can see, hey, there's this noun conceptual language, and there's this theme for Employee Wellness 2020 that keeps coming up. Let's recommend this as a thing. And what you can do with this is you still have a human element. So a human as an admin can still make a decision. These were themes recommended. I want to retain these themes, but no, there's a couple I'm not as interested in. I can knock those away, which is the benefit. You have the advantages of machine learning, but also a human element to make the decision about what themes to retain or which ones you might want to decide to exclude. Comment hotspots report again. I kind of detailed those in there, so I'll just move through this since I highlighted that and the crosstab. One thing that's coming up and moving kind of into more of a run stage is not viewing issues in isolation and understanding how issues correlate to one another. What issues seem to co-occur and come up together. You can do that through a theme co-occurrence analysis, where you can evaluate what themes come up to one another. So in this case here, we see like the rewards theme, and we can see rewards is often mentioned alongside benefits and culture. And in that case, we see benefits and culture kind of from their size are coming up quite a bit with rewards because they're green. We can see that they're mentioned more positively, while we can see other areas like bureaucracy, learning development mentioned a little bit more negatively, although they're not as often mentioned. It can help identify what issues are co-occurring. So like rewards, of course, no-brainer kind of fits with benefits, but rewards also seems in this case to be dealing with the company's culture a bit. But we could see that perhaps some managers are having issues like with bureaucracy. Perhaps some of them are having issues with working in the reward system or getting approval for rewards. So it can help and analyze it that way, as well as a tabular view to do this, where you can see your themes that co-occur with one another, their rankings, kind of their distribution of sentiments as well. And one thing I think is really exciting is this linking up with a noteworthy comments analysis. And a noteworthy comments analysis, the goal of that is to highlight insightful comments to help give you a range of people's responses to these results. So in this case, with a noteworthy comment analysis, what you'll actually see is it's the question of, I have 5,000 comments to review. I don't have time to review all of them, even though I'd like to. Can I see maybe like 30 of them to give me an idea of what people are saying? This is exactly that use case, is to give users detail-rich comments that are focused on, are highly focused on the issues they're discussing, and that give you the full range of how people feel about it. So it's not just everyone's angry, everyone's happy about something, but gives you the full range of, for these issues, this is a key examples of details of what people are happy about, what people are upset about, and also for folks in the middle, how they feel about things. And then kind of finally as well, providing a quick summary for users, where with the upcoming summary tab, particularly for like line manager users who in line manager use case, they might not want to use something like a crosstab or a hotspots analysis as much, but they want a quick overview of the results to quickly identify where they need to move next. And a summary tab helps provide that. So you can see your question items, how often people are responding, and also how people feel about them, and what your most positive and negative themes are to provide that. And where we're moving to next, just some things that we're moving towards, and we also want to kind of elicit a lot of feedback of what's important to you and what can help you in your use cases as we move forward. So one thing is, as you kind of move into running with text analytics, response nudges, a way to encourage people to provide more and better feedback while they're taking a survey and a tool. So in this case, while a lot of folks might try to write a one-sentence response, try to elicit more data from, because it could be that the person, because of time constraints, might just try to write a one-sentence response. They might have a lot of detail that's being missed if we don't get that. So encouraging them to provide more feedback or elaborate more. That, I see you're talking about your manager. Could you provide more details in this? Analyzing survey and text data together. So, traditionally, a lot of times, the text data and the regular Likert scale, agree, strongly agree, disagree data, it's traditionally been siloed apart. So, okay, I'm going to analyze all my typical survey items here. Okay, I'm done with that. Now I'm moving into the next silo and I'm going to look at my comments. Instead of having all that stuff separated, bring it all together in one place. So, you've got sentiment data, you've got theme data, bring everything together into one place to analyze. So you can see how people that were discussing their, the benefits based on sentiment, how that relates to their engagement, or people that are discussing company strategy, variations of patterns of how that relates to engagement or other data. And again, making it so you don't have to have a background in machine learning or stats or anything to do this. A quick, easy analysis that combines that data and makes it readily understandable to users. And then comparing your business to others. Again, like as folks in the industry know, when you have survey data, benchmarks have been a traditional part of that. And they've traditionally just focused on the typical Likert scale type items on surveys, those typical 5-point scale items, and they're long running use. So why not also compare yourself on sentiment and themes that come up in your data to see, you can answer questions of, okay, we have 60% of respondents are happy with their work-life balance, but could it be higher? What's it compared to the rest of the industry? Perhaps you'd find that comparing that with the industry standard, perhaps we see in the industry standard, maybe it's 40%. Comparisons that you can make use of what you normally do to analyze your data in your standard Likert scale responses, doing the same and analyze it the same way with your text data through text benchmarks. Voice-based comments, getting results from employee and customer data. So rather than just written feedback. So instead of just relying solely on stuff that's already text, why not analyze voice data as well? Because it's an ever-growing resource, and if you have it, you may as well analyze it because you're missing out on tons of useful information. And even so, you might be able to elicit better responses through voice than text. There's always someone who might be concerned, oh, I'd really like to say a lot, but it take me 15 minutes to write out. They might be disinclined to really go into detail. That same person, if they can respond by voice, that person might give you, huge amount of detail in a 2-minute, voice recording than they would in a written comment. So new sources of data. Crowdsourced feedback and democratization decisions. So making use of the crowd to brainstorm and upvote ideas through collaborative tools. So this is in the run stage where, instead of just evaluating the data and making a decision on that and kind of later seeking feedback, you can have more continuous feedback, brainstorming, upvoting, so employees feel empowered that they are playing a role in making improvements and have an impact through that. And also digital exhaust. So going beyond traditional survey sources. So instead of it being, okay, here's my data, I'm going to look in the silo for my engagement, here's my 360, here's my onboard, here's my exit, but instead taking advantage of all your sources, because it's not like the data live in a vacuum. It's not like in the real world, all the aspects of a business are in a vacuum. All of this matters, all of this fits together. And so you want to make sure that the data you have reflect that. So combining your data, having data from social media, continuous listening and everything to gain a fuller picture. So not everything's in a vacuum. You can make better decisions through having a holistic full scope of data.
And Matt,
And then,
we do have a question in the chat.
Oh, sure.
About sentiment and theme data. Does Perceptyx provide the industry standards of sentiment and theme data?
Yeah, so for industry standards, about 80 to 85% is what would be expected based upon human beings agreeing on sentiment. Our themes are within that range as well. Anything above, we're doing pretty well in the themes with our new default themes, about 90% accurate in detection based on those. We're getting basically industry standard for that should be about 70, 75% or above on themes.
Thank you.
And then kind of a final note, what do you want to get off text analytics that you can get right now? And so again, these are lots of future developments, but I also wanted to know from you too, are there any things you're trying to do or wanting to do with text data that you can't do right now? And then final word, we'd love to hear your feedback. So please, we're gonna have a product survey. Here's the link. This will also be thrown in the chat. And we'd love to hear feedback. So again, thank you for coming, and please take the survey. We really like to hear what you have to say. Thank you.